Hi there. In this video, we're going to be talking about transformations of functions. And when we do transformations of functions, this is when we can translate, reflect, and dilate functions. Okay? Translate means we move left or right, or up or down. Reflect over the y-axis or the x-axis. And then dilate means that we stretch a graph or we shrink it. All right, so I have a formula that I use to show transformation on any function, okay? And so what this is, I call this a times f of x minus h and then plus k. All right, this is a formula that we can show for any transformation of any function, okay? The first thing I want to talk about is the portion right here, all right? And this is the x minus h portion, all right? So this is the inside the parentheses or the grouping symbols, okay? And what this is going to do is this is going to be your horizontal translation, all right? So horizontal, we'll call it horizontal shift, all right? This is going to move it left or right, and it's going to be opposite of the sign, all right? Opposite sign. All right, we'll talk more about that here in a second. This part here, this plus k, is your vertical shift, so vertical shift, and this is going to move it up or down, and this is going to go with your sign. All right, so go with the sign. All right, the a value is an interesting value, all right, interesting thing here. This is going to do a couple of things, all right. This is going to reflect over the x-axis if a is negative. All right, so if a is less than 0 means that a is negative. Okay. The other thing that the a value is going to do is it's going to stretch or shrink. I'm going to move this down over here. And so here, we got a couple options here. If a is greater than 1, then you have a horizontal or a vertical, then you have a vertical stretch, all right, meaning that your graph gets thin, okay? The other thing that we can say is that if a is less than 1 or greater than 0, then you have a vertical shrink, all right? And what that's going to do is it's going to make your graph fat, all right? So the way that I remember this is by simply thinking about if your graph is thin, okay, so if the graph is thin, then you need to, I think of like a person. If you're too thin, then you need to eat more, all right? And this is just how I remember this. But if your graph, if you're fat, all right, then you need to eat less. And I only use that because that's how I was able to like remember this. So if your value for a is more, all right, is more than 1, then you're thin. And I kind of think about it the other way. So like if you're thin, then you need to eat more. If you're fat, you need to eat less, meaning that your a value is less than 1, but at the same time greater than 0, so it's a fraction, all right? So what I want to do is use all of this information here to do some practice problems on what we were doing. All right, so you got to know all your parent functions in order to do these things. All right, let's take a look at a couple of examples. So the first example that I have is I have graphed the function g of x is equal to the quantity x minus 3 squared plus 2. Now, because this is something squared, my parent function is going to be the function f of x is equal to x squared. All right, so parent function is f of x is equal to x squared. All right, and what this is, I want to look at this. This means this x minus 3, because it's inside the parentheses, this is going to be a shift to the right 3 units, okay? Remember that if it's inside the parentheses or inside your grouping symbols, it's always going to be the opposite of what it says. So if it's a minus, all right, that means it's going to be shifted to the right 3 units. The other one that I've got is this plus 2 here, which is going to be your shift up 2 units. All right, and so let's do this. All right, let's graph our parent function real quick. And we know we have the point 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 4. All right, negative 1, negative 1, negative 2, 4. All right, so I'm just graphing these. All right, and so once I have those graphed, what I need to do is I need to take each of these points, shift it to the right 3 units, and then up 2. So I'm going to move this, my point from 0, 0 is going to go to the right 1, 2, 3, and then it's going to go up 1, 2. And my new point here is going to land at the point 3, 2. And what I know is that I can do that for all of these points. I can go over 1, 2, 3, and I can go up 1, 2 and plot a new point. All right, and all I'm doing is taking these points and moving them over 3 and then up 2. So if I take this point here, 1, 2, 3, and then up 2, 1, 2, and plot a point, I have the same exact graph. It's just that it's been shifted to the right 3 units and then up 2 units. And that's all I'm doing for this. All right, and so all the points are the same. All right. Meaning from here, from my vertex point on my parabola, you know, I know that my next point is going to be up 1 over 1. And that's going to be the same thing here. It's going to be up 1 over 1. And then up 1 to the left 1 to get to that next point. All right, and so that's the idea, is that you take all the points from your parent function and you just move them over to what you need, okay? Okay, the next one that I want to do is graph the function h of x is equal to negative 2 times the absolute value of x plus 1 and then minus 3. All right, so let's label what's happening here. First of all, x plus 1, if it's inside the parentheses, this means I'm going to move it left 1 unit. All right, remember that it's opposite of what it says, so since it's a plus 1, that means that we want to move it to the left. All right. If it's a minus 3 on the outside, that means that we're going to move it down 3 units. All right. And then this negative 2, all right, not only does that mean that we're going to reflect over the x-axis, but we're also going to stretch by a factor of 2. Okay, so whenever you see this, you know, any function that you have here that you need to graph, know that it's merely just a series of transformations that are going to get you to where you need. Now, let's also identify our parent function, which is the absolute value of x. All right, so let's remember, what that graph looks like. Okay, and so let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's graph our parent function because that's the one that is the easiest one to graph, and that's how we're going to kind of manipulate these points to get them to do what we want it to do. All right, so the absolute value graph is the V-shaped graph. All right, and from here, we want to, I'm going to first shift to the left 1 unit and then down 3, all right? And so I'm going to take my vertex point here, move it to the left 1, and then I'm going to move it down 3 units here, and we're going to plot a new point. All right, that's my vertex point. All right, the next thing that we want to do, reflect it over the x-axis and stretch by a factor of 2, means that, and let me kind of extend these points down. So what I'm going to do from here is this is now my new vertex point. This point here be moved over here. But then what I want to do, because this graph was opening up, I want it to open down, and it needs to be stretched. So it's going to be a thin graph. And one thing that I can think of, because these points is a linear. These are linear functions here and here, and it's a slope of 1. This now becomes a slope of 2. All right, and so my other new point, I'm going to go down 2 to the right 1 and down 2 to the left 1 to get those new points. All right, and so our graph, as you can see, has been shifted to the left 1, down 3, and then reflected, so it's opening on the other end, and then it's stretched by a factor of 2. And notice how we have a slope of 2 over 1, 2 over 1 here, where this had a slope of 1 up 1 over 1. All right, and so that's the idea on that. So that's the basic idea on transformations. All right, so please reach out if you have any other questions. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but that in essence is the idea. All right, so hopefully this all makes sense. Please let me know if you have any other questions. Thanks. Bye.